Hi, everyone. My name is Ken Anderson here at IntelliChief. We're going to get started in 2 minutes, 1.5 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. See a bunch of new folks joining in. If you're here for AP automation for Oracle EBS, a methodology for success, you are in the right spot. We'll start in roughly about 1 minute. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining me. My name is Ken Anderson. I'm here at IntelliChief. Today's presentation is about AP automation for Oracle EBS. And what we're going to go through here is effectively the methodology that we use here to implement not just our AP automation system, but really order to cash, cash application, all that good stuff. But it's particularly good if you have a project for this type of technology that you're looking to implement in your organization, really looking for a way to figure out sort of how to do it, if you will. So let's go ahead and get started real quick. Towards the end, how to ask a question. I know a lot of people have probably been on a lot of webinars lately, but on the right-hand side, just go ahead and submit your question in the box, and you can send that over. We'll get it answered. I'll open it back up at the end so I can see those and make sure we get those answered. All right, so the agenda today, and I got a ton of stuff here to cover, so I might talk a little fast and try to really hammer through it because I want to make sure we get a chance to see all the sort of our implementation approach. It's not really just implementation, it's how do I do it as an organization and really create a project plan for getting an AP automation system that meets your requirements. Okay, so the agenda today is, I just want to quickly talk about who we are, automating the accounts payable process, how to identify what the goals are, create a solution design, create a business case or justification, looking at sort of some of the important details that we see out in the field that come up after, and particularly when we're doing replacements of other tools out there, things that maybe you didn't know sort of up front that you might have known had you dug in and really done this deep dive into your process, next steps, questions, etc. So what and who are we? Why do we think we have, or I have, some expertise and ability to talk about this? IntelliChief is an ECM system. So what that is effectively a content management system that's used across the enterprise. So if you're on the call and you're a customer and you use us, for example, in the human resources side of your business, you could use this same tool that you use now to automate your AP process, or if you took in sales orders or some other tool. Enterprise content management systems are meant to be really manage the life cycle of content and automate a manual process anywhere within the organization. So today we're talking about AP because obviously, that's a critical and very obvious sort of manual process in an organization, but it could be used for all kinds of different areas. So that's what we focus on as a business, and the AP is frankly usually one of the first things folks look at. So where are we? So IntelliChief is a US-based company. I'm actually here in Tampa, Florida, but we serve customers literally around the world. So Tampa is our world headquarters, if you will. However, our development technical support is based just outside Boston, Massachusetts. And we provide, obviously, AP, sales orders. We're dealing with content that is mission critical to the business. All we have really is a 24/7 tech support. If something is wrong, you need someone to talk to. So we got, hundreds of customers out there that use all kinds of different ERP systems or systems of record, from, obviously Oracle EBS we're talking about today and the integration there. But if you've got other ones that you use within your organization and are curious, okay, well, I handle all my, inventory invoices in EBS, but then I have, an EAM system where I do, a bunch of other stuff. That's okay. We can handle really all of those kinds of things. And the same methodology we're talking about here today works for those other applications as well. So we're obviously an Oracle Gold partner. The two areas that we really heavily focus on in the Oracle ecosystem is EBS and JD Edwards. Those are our sort of two favorites. I don't know if it's a favorite or it's just because there happens to be a lot of opportunity there, but you guys are on the call, so hopefully it's the latter, right? So let's jump into accounts payable and really talk about this whole concept of AP automation. So AP automation goals, right? So I guess the most common things that we're hearing about when we're implementing this tool or talking to folks who want to implement a tool like this are the following, right? Eliminate and reduce time spent doing data entry. That's usually one of the big ones. If a customer has some tool today, it's usually around this concept of straight-through processing, or you might hear it referred to as touchless or STP. And what that is basically an invoice comes into our organization, and then it doesn't have to be looked at by any users. It performs an automatic match and is ultimately vouchered in EBS, right? That's a big one. Distributors, it's to maximize the early pay discounts. The ability to look into our business process and figure out, okay, where are the bottlenecks? So just to have a system that I can kind of, dig into what's causing me to be slow, if you will, in payments or some other area. Eliminate duplicate payments is a big one. Errors on the data entry side. Automating the process so that users don't look for new careers, that they're not focused just on sort of mundane work every day. They're really dealing with AP issues and only focus on those. You need to reduce staff, or you're growing exponentially and you want a way to minimize the increase in headcount in the back office side, or some business continuity plan like this recent sort of pandemic where folks can now process and do things in the back office from other areas other than simply sitting, in the office. So those are some of the big ones. So maybe 10 years ago, we created a methodology, if you will, on the AP automation side that could be used for folks to really ensure that if they follow the methodology, there would be success at the end. I think it applies to, AP really well. So let's talk about that. We call it the business design. And if you have a project on the forefront, or you maybe are looking to replace something that doesn't meet the requirements of today, this is a really good thing to look at to ensure that when we're done, not us, but any vendor you look at, the expectations on your end are met. And so we'll just walk through this real quick. So one, obviously understand the problem, identify the goals and requirements to solve that problem, map the existing process. And I'll get into all these different pieces. Then we have an idea of how we're going to design what the solution is going to be. We want to look at the justification or your return on investment on a tool like this. And, is it going to be within the confines of what the business needs? Document and present. Okay, I'm going to talk about that later, but it's one of the most critical pieces of this whole thing so that everybody's, on the same page in terms of what the expectations are going to be. And that's, the business, the folks within your organization, the vendor you select, all that good stuff. kick off the technical design. That's the first time we're really getting into, technical stuff, right? So if you're on the IT side, right, and you've got the business coming and saying we need to really, do this AP automation project, some of those steps up front, those are really IT steps, right? Those are steps within the business side because they're the one that really knows and encounters this problem every single day. Okay, so let's jump into it. So understanding the problem, right? And this is different for everybody. I can give you, 15, 20 different customers that have completely different objectives because they were solving something totally different, right? So this is really unique to you as a business. So one of the key pieces involving key users who really understand the current process and why things are happening the way we're doing it. So some of the questions to ask there: how much are we processing manually? Obviously, right? How many invoices do I process at 50,000 a month? Is it 5,000 a month, etc.? What's the scope of this problem, if you will? How much time do I spend manually matching and typing in data? Now, again, these are just sort of general questions, things to think about as you're really starting to try to understand the problem we're looking at here, because we got to quantify it and ultimately come up with what the justification is, right? Is my process standardized? Is there tribal knowledge required? I have a customer out in the central U.S. who this was their biggest issue, is that they had, a handful of key folks who were nearing retirement, and the problem was, they were the ones who understood the business problem, right? This vendor processes this on Sundays, but not on Wednesdays. They send us a different thing from a different location, right? That's not good to scale, and it's very difficult to really get your arms around, right? So is tribal knowledge required? To them, that was probably the most critical piece to the whole puzzle. So how much time is taken to review errors and exceptions when something doesn't go the way it's supposed to do? How long does it take me to figure out, what the issue is so I can get that invoice processed? On the saving time and money end, examples: what exceptions cause invoices not to go straight through? So if you already have a tool that helps, from an AP automation perspective, what specifically are the exceptions that happen over and over that cause this not to go straight through, right? Is it a unit measure issue where the PO unit measure doesn't match the invoice? Things like that. Those are the ones we're after, right? Can I reduce the amount of time and expense of audit, right? We just got a request yesterday from one of our customers on how to use one of the tools they have to export the approval matrix and who approved what invoices over what amount, and just pull that right from analytics so that they can reduce their audit, or if you have to provide X number of sample transactions. How much does storage cost per year if you're outsourcing that? How do I increase productivity amongst the team? The bottlenecks in expense approvals. I always send it to, every time we send it to the Eastern region, it doesn't come back for 12 days and now the invoice is late, or whatever that piece is that's causing those bottlenecks to happen. Can I reduce my volume of received not vouchered invoices? So if you're measuring received not vouchered, and is there a way to maximize that without having to offer out overtime or bring in additional back office to ensure that your received not voucher goes down? So another great one that folks measure on the AP side. And of course, with this latest thing, how can we process AP if people are working remote instead of in the office? So these are some of the things you want to ask when you want to really understand the problem. And we're going to have to document this stuff because, if we want to get this through, so to speak, or, of justification of project kicked off, these are some of the things you want to start asking and quantifying on your side. So now we know what the problem is. Let's look at and identify the goals and requirements of this particular project, right? So one of our goals, we want to, again, examples, right? Reduce time spent performing manual data entry. Okay, I'm going to reduce that by 50% because 50 or 90% of my stuff matches. I want to create a standardized process. I'm going to maximize my early pay discounts. These are, should seem obvious because we just identified what the problem was, and the problem was I wasn't taking any early pay discount. Well, as a result of this AP automation project that I'm going to do, I need to take those, and I'm going to take 90% of the ones that I have the ability to do. These are going to be built into my sort of goals sheet. We haven't talked to a vendor at this point. We haven't we haven't done anything other than on our own trying to understand why we're doing this particular type of project, right? Eliminate duplicate payments or late duplicate invoices and late payments. I got to get my current system doesn't give me straight through processing. I want, 50% to do that. Automate my process because I don't want people to, just sit there and key and match all day. I want them to focus on, why we hired them to fix exceptions in our process. Reduce, reallocate, or, eliminate the hiring of 20 people at my shared services center. Increase the visibility. I need an analytics tool so I can see what my received not voucher looks like and that it's going down periodically. I want to reduce it by 15% as a result of doing that. So those are some of the examples from a goals perspective in creating the process to ensure a successful AP automation. So now we got our goals down. This, honestly, this one is probably one of the most critical pieces of the entire project, right? I have had a handful of folks if you're one of the people that know and have your process mapped, you're awesome. We love you. You need to call us right away because a lot of time, we're moving so fast, we really don't have an understanding of how our existing process works, right? And so that is one of the big bottlenecks that causes a mismatch between the expectations you have as a customer and the implementation provider or partner or ISV or vendor like us, right? And so I show you this because this is similar to one we saw a long time ago where we said, hey, let's look at the business process and how it works. Well, this looks very simple, right? AP gets stuff, they make copies, send it to an approver. Very simple process, right? This same process really looks like this from an end user perspective, right? Well, on the inventory side, vendors A through C do this, but this vendor doesn't because they split it into multiple invoices, and I've got to then match those up to a set of receiving because it's a blanket PO. And the point is that the understanding for all invoice types what the existing process is absolutely critical in terms of how do I streamline it, right? Well, what do I noticed you threw away that pink copy down in the warehouse. Why'd you throw that away? I don't know. I've just been throwing that away for several years. Well, that's a great opportunity to eliminate something. But in order to do that, we got to know what the existing process is in detail, right? And that's when a vendor like us can really help and say, I've seen that before. That's something that we think we can help with by putting in this one simple workflow step that automates the sending from Ken to Bob, and it eliminates your user from ever having to do that again. So map the current process. Can't reiterate that enough. So how do you do that? How do I identify things in the current process? Obviously, again, how many of these things am I doing? How many invoices do I process each day, month, year, however you measure it, right? Identifying how they come into your organization, right? That's part of mapping the process. I get 20% of my invoices still come via fax from smaller vendors. Or I have, this section of them come as EDI transmissions, but we still have to process the EDI through payables in EBS. Wherever the decisions in the process are and where it ends, right, of every single invoice type that's out there. I know it sounds steep, but believe me, you're going to take a lot of the redundancy out of the process when you implement the AP automation system if you know what the redundancy is up front. So you want to map that entire process from start to finish, right? Not just one task. Invoices come in and then, they go sorted by alphabet and then we pay them. No, I guarantee if you get out there and talk to some of those power users or folks that really understand their piece to the process, it's going to be more complex than that. All the personnel involved, right? Who has to approve if we're talking expense or non-PO? Do you code in the field? For example, a project manager, all those kinds of things, and who does them, right? The potential user issues where someone maybe doesn't have access because they operate at a building site out in the field. That might be an issue where they need to have approval from a mobile device, as an example. Those kinds of things. All the integration points with EBS, right? Because I need to, if I'm say we're doing invoices inbound, we're doing a 3 or 4 way match of some kind, and I'm obviously going to be able to read the PO table, your terms table, the receipt table, etc. What are all those integration points? And you may not. That might be a little more in the IT side, but it's not. It's from a business perspective. What does the user need to know in terms of processing an invoice? That's a business question, not an IT question. Identify all your document related as well as activity related tasks, and identify any in your mind where the problem areas or opportunity areas are, right? If every single time a particular vendor we do a release and there's a problem with, the total doesn't match, whatever, those kinds of things, just pick those out. Now I got the process map. Hey, we should just eliminate that step now. Why are we doing a think copy? Okay. So create the flow for your current AP process using some of those questions as we talked about, and things to help out, right? Any manual calculations users do, right? Go out into the floor, call up folks now or go on Zoom. Manual calculations users are involved with that would cause an invoice not to match, right? So if they're doing something manually, activities that cross areas, right? AP does an excellent job. They get their invoice, they get it into the system. Now they got to send it out for approval, and it takes 2 weeks. When I have to go across functional areas, that's when that's a piece that I need to know, and that's something you can take care of, right? With a PO is incorrect. Can I just route this over to purchasing, and the buyer can take care of a price exception? There's always exceptions when things don't. They're not all, it comes in, simply matches, and then you're done. If it did, that would be fantastic. How many match today, right? Because if you've got 90% of your invoices today don't match, then it's going to be very difficult for any AP automation system to make them match, right? How do you geocode tax, freight, VAT, other charges, county taxes? Are those even things that you have to worry about? How many people are involved in handling each document? And is it the same if you're a multi-location shop, right? Or if you've got multiple, does division 1, 2, 3, who does building products, do it different than roofing products? And I just made both those places up. So just examples on how to do that. Now we're ready to sort of design the solution, right? Getting started on that. Now you can explore the different scenarios out there for all the different problems identified. Validate that with the user. Is this going to work, right? Users will come back if they understand from the front and say, wait a minute, that doesn't work. How are we going to get them in via email that come in from our Mexico location and they have an electronic requirement because of, invoice control numbers on the invoice, something like that. But users are very good at being able to pick out some of those pieces. The technology. Is it multiple ERPs? Do I have to pull information from EB? Do I roll up information in EBS, but I create my purchase orders in some other system? And what IT assistance, if any, is going to be needed in terms of doing that, right? Changes to processes, business rules, and the implementation plan make that obviously a priority. Schedule a review of the design, what's called the solution design, with your team and the executive management team to make sure it meets the requirements. So some other considerations, right? Just getting back to that detailed analysis, if you will. Are invoices sorted into groups, master receiver packets? How many people have to do that? Do you have to make copies? Unit measure issues, ordering part numbers versus supplier part numbers versus invoiced part numbers. So you can kind of read through that and see a couple, some other examples from an analysis perspective. So the importance of the discovery phase. So the discovery phase is, now we have a good handle on really what the problem is. We, have looked at it from target or areas of opportunity. And a lot of what we do, I can speak to one of the things that is really translating now that information that we determine into focus with our vendor, right, us. So what we do is use whiteboard sessions, right, where we're trying to make sure that we as a vendor really understand your business process, right? And how that current business process operates. So that way, because we can really we know what our stuff does, if you will, and can it automate some of the manual steps today? So it's really creating that partnership between us understanding how it works and then being able to translate into what are the features and functions of the tool to ensure that you get that straight through processing rate. So without that context, nobody can really, it's very difficult. We get calls like this all the time. Someone says, well, how much is that? Well, it's very difficult to tell because we don't have an understanding of what the breadbox looks like, if you will. So the whiteboard sessions are really important to sort of translate how you operate to your vendor, i.e. us, hopefully. So focus on all the little details there, right? Because the exceptions are the things that cause sort of melee, if you will, right? If it's an exception that happens once or twice a year, who cares about that, right? We could process that, manually instead of spending a ton of effort. If 90% of our stuff matches, and it's really, we just got to read the invoice, do the match, get it into a system, that's fantastic. That's going to be a huge ROI and very, quick implementation. But it's usually those details of when things don't follow that path that, have to build in that redundancy to say what to do when those things happen. The goal, obviously, is to be on the same page with whomever your potential vendor is so that when the solution's implemented, not only just from an ROI perspective, but also from, your expectation perspective, the problems that we identified are now solved or partially solved as much as they can be. And then once you have all that good stuff, you can now find, pick, so to speak, the vendor and or tool that will meet the requirements that you have as an organization, right? Now you can find a vendor and develop the plan together to ensure that it's a successful implementation. So the discovery phase is critical in terms of, translating what we're trying to accomplish to a vendor like IntelliChief so that we're literally on the same page. So as I mentioned, we do a sales discovery in all of our, when we're talking to organizations. So here's an example of Ellen from Teledyne Controls. They were very resistant to having us come out, but then at the very end, we sort of whiteboarded everything out, and then it made sense why we were trying to do that so that we could figure out what their business process is. So if a vendor can't do that, that's a red flag. The vendor and the customer have to be on the same page. So it's important to find somebody that understands and learns that business, right? And the unique aspects of it. I'm a process manufacturer, so receiving works very differently, buying in bulk. Identify some of your SMEs internally that understand when things happen and why. And of course, like I said, that's when you can come together and develop that plan. So, okay, now we want to figure out, we did all this effort, and a lot of times you guys know, listen, I have all my team working overtime to get stuff processed. It's pretty obvious that there's a problem there, but we still have to calculate the ROI and justification. So we do have an ROI calculator, so to speak. I recommend you walk through it with someone here if you can. Otherwise, you can take a stab at it. But, it was developed based on some of the things we've seen out of the field. So some of the stuff's not going to apply to you at all. I don't do that thing. So I get no benefit from, and you just leave it blank. But there is a ROI sort of tool to help you build that business case out there. So it's important to determine that whole potential ROI, or like I like to say, the justification, so that you're sure, it might feel like, look, I'm doing all these invoices a month and we're all doing overtime to try to make this happen. But is there a justification? If there isn't, it might make sense to simply process more, manually. Go forward. That might be the results of figuring out what the justification is, in which case you move on to a different project that has a better ROI, if you will. So we'll look at a couple of examples. Cost per invoice. These are just, again, examples, right? cost per invoice process, lead time, number of invoices for FTE. And these are some of the things people have used to sort of develop and determine what their justification and or ROI is. So cost per invoice is, typically the total average cost of processing a single invoice throughout the organization, right? So anything cost-wise that is required to make that happen. Labor costs, how many scanners I need or fax machines or however that works. Any office supplies, is folks in the field that are divisions, FedExing, receivers and whatever those things are, right? And basically take that, divide by the number, and now you have your cost per invoice. So an example. So one of our customers, again, Teledyne, $2,000 a month on scanning and document storage. So that wasn't even a requirement, so to speak, in their organization. Storage of stuff was sort of a side thing. They wanted to automate the matching process and, do away with manual keying. But a side benefit was, and in doing the return on investment, they said, wait a minute, we're paying this organization to store our stuff. And $2,000 a month seemed like, we'll take that off the table. Lead time. So lead time is, AP tracks the total time it takes to be received, processed, finalized, and ready for payment in EBS, right? And some people take it to payment or a voucher. So you may digitize an invoice, you might match, right, to receipts, a bill of lading, packing list, PO, a contract if it's a release, approve any deviations, expense invoices. You might have to have those, keyed into an Excel spreadsheet to code in the field. I've seen it, believe me. Distribute for approval based on some dollar amount, and ultimately complete a final review. So that could be, some amount of time. And if you have a goal set up that says, I need to reduce, here's one of our customers, Civco, they were doing 18 to 21 days, and they were able to reduce that 8 to 10 days, 90 days post-implementation. So if that was a goal in their case, it was reduce invoice lead time. We see that a lot on the sales order side, actually, too. Number of invoices a FTE can process, right? That's how many, every time I add a new FTE, I can process, 200 more invoices. And that, maybe because I got invoices coming in with 100 lines on them. So you should, here's an example where we're, improving productivity over 80%, just by doing simple things like routing, right? Routing non-PO stuff. So hard savings and soft savings, we know what they are. Obviously, the hard savings are the big one for, reducing personnel or not having to bring in, pay overtime or increase in taking discounts. That gives us the ability to leverage that when we set up, with our friends of purchasing to set up early pay discount percentages. On the soft saving side, faster approvals, right? The CFO comes in and says, I'm sick of having to, stamp and write approved on things. I would like to do that from a mobile phone. Those are your soft type savings. And then ultimately document and present that, right? And so when you're creating a justification or a business case, it's not, it's important for you to understand what that business case is, but it's even more important for the really the whole organization to understand, right? So when you're creating it, and we have examples of this if you want to, talk to us and see what some other folks have done. But obviously create an executive summary. Here's what we're going to do. Here's our goals and requirements. Here's our current process. Basically everything that we just talked about is now going to be written into a nice, neat package. Here's our return on investment, implementation methodology. Here's how long it's going to take, the pricing, our plan, all that good stuff. And now we have it's very difficult to sort of go through that and say, wait a minute, that doesn't work because we do whatever. No, I've already done my upfront homework on this thing. When this is done, this is going to be implemented. It's going to be implemented to the way that, has a justification of X. So again, it communicates the value and benefits to your team. So examples of things that, might be in there. EBS is our system of record, and we're going to use that to maximize productivity. We're going to turn around and scan things that used to be unstructured and store them electronically so that remote people have access to them when they need them. Automatically import emailed invoices so I don't have to scan things, right? I'm going to put that on my vendors to email things in, and then the system's going to pick them up and read them automatically. Capturing data off of the invoice and validating against what's in EBS to ensure that it's correct, and then I can minimize the concept of manual keying. Capture special charges, shipping and taxes, whatever those things are, and I'm just going to scroll down here so you can kind of see examples that should go into that are value and benefits to the team that anybody really can appreciate, right? Within the organization. We're just communicating when we're done, what am I going to now have as a result of doing this? We're ready to rock and roll. Now, at that point, it's time to kick off the technical design and go for implementation. And this is really, I'm just going to share sort of how we do it here. And, I'm sure there's other ways to do it, but we like our way the best. So, we assign a team, if you will, to an implementation project, a PM, somebody who does the installation, a designer who's a solution designer who goes through and says, okay, let's translate this business requirements that we've collected into what it can do in the tool. And then we take that and turn around and give it to an implementation engineer who says, okay, I got to implement what's in this thing. And if I do that, it's going to meet the requirements of our customer. Test engineer who now tests it in conference room pilot and a CRP and says, okay, give me your, top hardest vendors, put them through, here's, it pass or fail and shows, that it works before you have to start testing. And then a trainer who says, okay, here's what we did. Now, here's how you're going to use it, So we call it the intelligent implementation process. So a lot of it up front is installation and analysis, right? You can kind of look through this. I know I'm getting towards the end of my time here, but it sort of follows along the same lines as what we've been talking about all along. Now it's from our perspective. Understand the customer's problem. Understand how their current process works. Match that up against our capabilities to ensure that we get straight through or whatever their goals are. And then, so sort of we're taking that same process that I've described to you guys, and that's how we implement. So that's really it. I mean, that is a proven methodology for getting an AP automation project, not just, approved and all that stuff, but actually implemented and delivering on the requirements that we thought it would up front, the expectation. So moving forward, some key considerations. So, AP only tools versus sort of an ECM tool, right? Do I want to turn around and then expand this into capturing journal entry stuff from my SOX requirements? Or enterprise solution allows you to now leverage this, and sometimes that helps from a justification standpoint to go into other departments and really get mind share that it's a tool that's from an enterprise perspective, so I can use it throughout my organization. Real-time integration to EBS, I didn't even get into that at all. We could, but there is a real-time integration. Understand the implementation methodology your vendor uses. I showed a little bit of ours. After the sales support, 24 hours, 7-day week. Let me tell you, this becomes mission critical. You don't want to walk in and find out, you have vendors calling and saying, I haven't got paid. You think they have, right? So somebody's got to be there to help out after that happens. So expansion, journal entries, attachments, packing list, bill of lading, whole other areas, order to cash instead of procure to pay. So those are some of the things you might consider as you take on, even though it's an AP automation project, but just things in the back of your mind. Once it's successful, you're going to want to roll it out to everything that's manual in the organization. So next steps, you can go on the website, download that ROI calculator. Contact us, obviously, to discuss any requirements that you have, justification discussions, or just say, how do people do the following? Happy to do that. We can also customize a plan for you and help out. We're obviously experts in this space. This is really what we do. AP are probably number one, sales order processing probably number two, HR probably number three. So with that, I see my thing blinking over here, so there's a couple questions. Let me see what they are. Just one question here. It looks like unit measure. How is that used to process invoices? So unit. So remember I was talking about exceptions. That's what causes things not to go touch this or straight through. An exception might be I ordered in, some unit of measure, dozens, right? I ordered 12 dozen, whatever. And then when I was invoiced, it was in carton or case or some other thing. Some other unit measure that causes the system to say, those two are different. Now that's going to have to go to someone who looks at that, right? So unit measure, we've actually built an algorithm that converts common unit measure issues, because the goal is to get as many invoices straight through as possible, particularly if there's no issue with them, right? Just because you order in dozens, the vendor sent in cases, the math still is the same. And so a unit measure conversion is important, something important to think about, because it's just strictly reading what's on the page versus what you ordered, via your PO. Those two won't match, and now it's going to have to go to somebody, right? We want to avoid having anything go to a user that doesn't need to be fixed, so to speak. So that was the only question. If you have any more, I want everybody for hearing me go over a little bit here today, and we're happy to help out. Again, IntelliChief.com. You have my phone number on the screen if you want to talk to me, or if you want to shoot me an email, I'm at KAnderson@IntelliChief.com. Thank you, everybody, for attending today, and we have a ton of other things like this on our website. And we send out, so please stay on our mailing list if you want some information on AP automation, HR, or really anything related to ECM.